Hello and welcome to another Ride Pure podcast. I've noticed a lot of chatter on social media recently about the Royal Enfield Bullet. And it led me to reflect on some of the key moments in the amazing life of this motorcycle. And one really fascinating memory came back to me, and it was this. In 1932, Royal Enfield's managing director, Major Frank Smith, wrote, "It is not too fanciful to anticipate the day when bullets will be flying peaceably around the Indian countryside, from Calcutta to Bombay and from the Himalayas to Cape Comorin." What a remarkable prediction that was, and little could he have imagined the impact this motorcycle was going to have over the following 91 years. I'm Gordan May, author, overland motorcycle traveller and Royal Enfield historian, and today I'm going to be telling you the Bullet story. The legendary Bullet is 91 years old this year, making it the longest running production model of any motorcycle anywhere in the world. 91 years old. And looking back to its introduction in 1932, it was quite a revolution. It was a thoroughly modern motorcycle. It came out in three forms: 250, 350 and 500cc. Not a lot of people know, though, it's been a 250cc Bullet. It had a foot change gearbox. At this time, I would say about 95%, if not more, of motorcycles still worked with a hand change gearbox. But the Bullet had a foot change gearbox. It had a fully enclosed all aluminium primary chain case, so it didn't drip oil everywhere. And it was an incredibly versatile motorcycle. So you could use a Bullet for touring, you could use it to go to work. If you were a trials rider, you could fit it with a wide ratio gearbox and go trials riding at the weekend, and then continue to use it as a commuter during the week. If you're a clubman sports rider, you could fit it with a close ratio gearbox and go racing at the weekend. And that was very much the case for the top of the line 500 Bullet, which came with a 4-valve cylinder head. And, this was an outright performance machine capable of almost 90 miles an hour in stock trim. However, with the factory tuning kit, which was a high compression piston straight through pipes and up-geared by one tooth, it could do 100 miles an hour, which for a motorcycle in 1932 was quite something. It also had a revolutionary center stand. Nearly every single motorcycle of this era had its stand at the rear, so it came off the rear subframe around the rear wheel, and as the rider you had to walk down the bike and haul it up onto this rear stand. But the Bullet came with a center stand that actually doubled up as a really novel prop stand. So everything about the new Bullet in 1932 was at the cutting edge of motorcycle development. The most critical development of the Bullet came along in 1948 with the introduction of swinging arm rear suspension. And the Bullet, along with the 500 Twin, which also got the same chassis, these were the first full production motorcycles anywhere in the world to have this kind of articulated fork swinging arm suspension. And within probably 4 or 5 years, just about every other motorcycle manufacturer copied that. And this was quite critical to how the motorcycle came to be so important to India. This swinging arm suspension made the post-war Bullet a fantastic trials motorcycle. It gave it great off-road capability as well as real comfort while being ridden on the road. So, after partition in India and the First Kashmiri War, the Indian Army recognized that it needed a robust, highly capable motorcycle that could patrol its borders, particularly in the mountainous regions of Kashmir and the deserts of Rajasthan. And after trialling various motorcycles, it found the Royal Enfield Bullet to be by far the best. And it was that swinging arm suspension, along with its very torquey but flexible engine, that made it so perfect. So the first order for a batch of 500 bullets was placed in 1951, and the Indian Army took delivery of them in January 1952, and they proved absolutely perfect for the task. More orders quickly followed, 1,200, 800, another 500. But at this time, India was very labour-rich, but cash-poor, and there were a lot of restrictions on what could and couldn't be imported. And for India's Royal Enfield importer, Madras Motors, to be able to really capitalise on the success of the Bullet, they knew they had to assemble the bikes in India. So a deal was struck with Royal Enfield Redditch, and construction of a factory began at the end of 1955 at Tiruvottia, just in the north of Madras, of this new plant to assemble CKD, completely knocked down, kit form Royal Enfield Bullets that were shipped in batches of 50 from Redditch. But now, of course, not only were these motorcycles going to supply the Indian Armed Forces and civil service and police, but they became available to the wider general public. And this is how this incredible story of Royal Enfield's success in India began. The Bullet proved to be the perfect tool for people to make extraordinary journeys. One such lady was Winifred Wells, a young Australian who, in 1951, became the first woman to ride coast to coast across the Australian continent, from Perth to Sydney and back on her 350 Bullet. The following year, 1952, accompanied by her father on his 350 Bullet, the pair actually circumnavigated the whole Australian continent. 1956, just after the factory in Madras had opened, two young Indian men, Alfred Barbosa and John Noronha, rode a 350 Bullet from the Chennai or Madras factory to the Redditch Royal Enfield factory. And on the pannier frames at the back of the bike was quite beautifully painted from east to west with India's goodwill, which is really charming. 1996, another epic ride took place on a Bullet when an Englishman, Greg Staves, who was in remission from cancer, shipped his 500 Bullet to Alaska. He rode to the most northern point of the American continent, accessible by road, Prudhoe Bay, dipped the bike in the Arctic Ocean, and then set about an extraordinary journey over 6 months to get down to the very southern tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego and the city of Ushuaia, then got onto a ship that took him to Antarctica so he could dip the front wheel of that Bullet in the Antarctic Ocean. And he did this on the summer solstice of the Northern Hemisphere, and then 6 months later, the summer solstice of the Southern Hemisphere. Along the way, raising over £80,000 for cancer research. And in more recent times, years 2000 to 2007, an Englishwoman, Jackie Furneaux, spent 7 years on a life-changing expedition riding her 500 Bullet around the world. And these quite incredible journeys were made possible just by the simplicity, the ease of maintenance, and the absolute ruggedness of the bullet. As well as these travelling legends, there were also competition riders who became legendary. And especially one, Johnny Britton, who won every single kind of trials competition going, including international 6 days trials, the Olympics of motorcycling, where he picked up 13 gold medals, mostly on his Royal Enfield Bullet. But of course, the Bullet was the motorcycle of the people, not just of these amazing explorers or competition riders. And it became loved all around the world, but especially in India, where it found its true home. And in India, it became not just a workhorse, it became aspirational. If you owned a Bullet, you had really achieved. You had a motorcycle that you could be really proud of. And Bullets were passed down from one generation to the next, from grandfather to father to son. It was a motorcycle that would be used by business people, by obviously government officials, by officers in the army. There are so many important milestones as we look back over the last 91 years. So we've already talked about the 1932 launch, the 1948 introduction of this groundbreaking swinging arm suspension, and also in 1948, the first international 6 days trial win for the Bullet. 1952, the introduction to the Indian Army, and also star rider Johnny Britton won the Scottish 6-day trial for the first time. 1953 is the first 500cc Bullet introduced post-war in the UK. And then 1963, 10 years after that, the first unit construction Bullet, that was the 350, that was also introduced in the UK, but not in India. 1989, in India came the first 500 Bullet that was built in the Tiruvottia factory. And then that was quickly followed in 1997 with the first massed ride on Royal Enfield Bullets to Ladakh and to the Kardungla Pass, at the time the world's highest. And now in 2023, a new exciting development in the life of the Bullet, this incredible 91-year journey, is about to be revealed. So stay tuned. 1st of September, follow Royal Enfield on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm sure you'll be as excited as I am about what comes next. In the meantime, we wish you great roads and safe riding.